Hello, and welcome to my continued analysis of the Nickelodeon show Space Cases. Today, episodes 8, 9, 10, 11. The first one is It's My Birthday Too, Yeah, which is a title that had confused me for many, many years until the other day when I was watching it and I was looking at the trivia section on the spacecasestv.com website for this episode, and I saw it's a reference to a Beatles song. Now, most of these titles are references to songs, but that one, and most of them I wouldn't necessarily have gotten because I was watching this before I'd heard most songs, and now I think I have heard most songs, at least most famous songs. And but at the time, pretty much all I was listening to was Beatles. I was watching Space Cases on TV, and I was listening to Beatles on cassette. And so I don't know what album the song is on. I guess since it's not Magical Mystery Tour or Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, I can be excused for not having, or not excused, but that's the reason I didn't pick up on it. Those were my favorite Beatles albums. And my favorite Beatles song, well, one of them being For the Benefit of Mr. Kite. Anyway, to the episode. Now, the term found family, I only discovered within the past couple of years querying literary agents who were looking for found family narratives, which I thought, when I found out what it was, I thought, oh, that's kind of what I'm offering, and I made the case. But it's basically if for whatever reason you're ostracized or kicked out of a birth family or nuclear family, and then you find another group, and that becomes like a family or becomes actual family. That's found family. And this was the show. I might have butchered the technical definition of it, but the concept I get, because this is the episode of this show introduced me to the concept 25 some years ago, because it's the one where the kids are all assigned to look into their family backgrounds, and we find out that Radu was hatched in a hatchery, doesn't know who his parents are, and therefore doesn't know his lineage. And at the end of the episode, this doesn't say much about what happens over the course of the episode. At the end of the episode, his project is that his family is the crew of the Krista. That's where he feels he belongs. Thelma says that her understanding of family is that they are those to whom you belong. And when Radu is feeling bad that he can't do the project like the other kids can. And so it's a very nice ending, and I remember thinking, oh, that makes sense. I didn't know the term found family. I didn't know that some people have to find their families. But I thought that makes sense. That makes sense for him. It just makes sense. So when I learned the term found family, I thought, oh, that was the first Space Cases, and Radu was the first thing I thought of. Let's see. And I wrote down, how many times do they bring foreign objects into the ship? They seem to do all of their planetary exploration off screen, because you get a lot of, and probably for budget reasons, and also so they don't have to explain how they get down to the planet's surface. But in this case, it's what seems to be a rock that Bova sneaks aboard the ship. Turns out to be an egg, as Radu says, like the one that he was hatched from, for a creature called a Gurkle, which sounds like gargoyle and looks like gargoyle. And by Gurkle, the word Gurkle sounds like gargoyle. The Gurkle itself does not sound like a gargoyle, because a gargoyle is made of stone and does not speak or make any sound, except the trickle of water coming out of its mouth. That might be a grotesque. These are architectural terms now, but you know what I'm talking about. So, but how would they land the ship? Or do they go down in a craft? Anyway, we learn in this episode things about people's families. And like Harlan, um, played by Walter Jones, he reveals that 400 years ago, his great great, I don't know how many greats he uses, but one of his ancestors was a slave and fought slavery. And unless Earth had another period where this was uh, very common, uh, and Harlan speaks English and he's got an American accent, so I'm thinking he's talking about the Civil War, that his great, 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 however many greats grandfather fought in the Civil War, which puts that, or rather puts Space Cases taking place 400 years from at least 1865. So that means that Space Cases takes place in the neighborhood of 2265, which is coming up, and so that's just a neat that clue, that historical clue, um, gives a date to a star date, as it were, to the proceedings. Um, Rosie, we see a bit of Rosie's presentation where she does a big flashy thing, and it looks like it's got a lot of, it looks like a pageant, and it reminded me of the Hill Cumorah pageant with the voiceover, and the voiceover is a male voice that does not belong to anyone on the ship. So I wonder if it's just like one of those, you put the text in and then the computer has a male voice. It made it sound like the Hill Cumorah pageant, and I was wondering if that was a deliberate thing. Um, Naturally, when Harlan reveals that he has slaves in his ancestry, Radu tries to say, "Well, me too. The Andromedans were slaves," and of course Harlan says it's different. And this is part of their continuing resistance to being friends, finding anything in common with Radu. But the show keeps throwing it at them. Um, and that's an entire plot line in this episode, is that Catalina is trying to help Harlan be nicer to Radu, with signals for helping control what he says, and he's trying to be nice, and then Radu makes up, not wanting to be honest about his uncertainty about his family, he makes up a story, and Harlan finds out and feels betrayed because he gave him the benefit of the doubt, and feels like he was taken advantage of. So this is what episodes of TV, that they create conflict. Everybody's always got to be doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, but it also, being a kid show, it works out. I think this is the first. I mean, Harlan and Catalina kind of have a dynamic the whole while, but it's particularly good in here because they're acting as a team. So that was really great. I think that's all I have for that episode. The next episode, I write the titles this way, but I take the notes this way. So this one, the next episode, Tie Me Kangaroo Down Court. Another, I mean, I knew it was reference to Kangaroo Court, but I had no idea why it was said that way. Apparently there's some kind of song, Tie Me Kangaroo Down Sport, and that is a song that I definitely have never heard. But it's the one, it's two major things. The one where they kind of court-martial Harlan because of reckless behavior, but mostly seemingly because he plays pranks and they all get in trouble. And they fly through an ionic storm and end up in a parallel universe where there's nothing but Spung, and they receive a message from themselves in the future, which does not include Harlan, and I don't think they ever really explain why, but it makes you wonder, is he dead in that future? This is also the first time that I really realized they put age makeup on the kids. They didn't hire actors to play the older kids. They put age makeup on the kids. Because the only one that speaks in the message is Catalina, and it sounds exactly like the Catalina who is however old she is on the Krista. But anyway, it made me wonder for the first time, not for the first time, I guess, but write it down for the first time, certainly. Did Harlan die somewhere along the way? I like that the message is, when it gets frizzy, because the whole point is that they missed part of the message. It's broken up. And when it gets all fuzzy, it gets fuzzy, not digital fuzzy, which would happen in a movie made today when messages in Star Wars or Star Trek, they get glitchy in a digital way, like if you're watching a digital thing and it's interrupted, it gets analog frizzy, it gets snowy. And so that's just, this play takes place in 2265 and they still having problems with analog video. Um, let's see. I wrote down why aren't the adult versions of Kids spung, but that's obviously because that was the right choice that they made, and so they sent the message, and therefore they wouldn't be spung. So that was wrong to write down. I wrote down, again, Harlan and Catalina. Clearly, they take becoming Star Dogs way more seriously than the others. They are those two and Radu are the three older kids. I don't know if those two are older than him. He's also kind of not a background character, but his whole race, alien race, is new to the system because they were separate. They were enslaved by the Spung and they were used in the war. So he doesn't have it in his ancestry, family history, culture to want to be a Star Dog. So and they do. I don't know. Catalina talks about her history in the previous episode, but I don't know if she's got, like, Harlan's father was a Star Dog and he really wants to follow. So I don't know Catalina's motivation, but it might be just that she's Hermione. She wants to be the best at everything. Nice to have she's competitive, whereas Radu is more passive and peaceful, and he wants to get along. Doesn't care so much about accomplishment as being helpful. It's nice to have that dichotomy on the ship in a kids show. Catalina and Harlan are also clearly seen as leaders because when it comes down to it in the dramatic moments, final moments of the episode, the other three turn to them and they've court-martialed Harlan, so they're not sure they want to take his word on anything, but they're the two who take turns at the helm. They're the two who take turns driving, and they're the two who the other three are looking to for what should we do. So it's a good episode, a really good episode. And then I didn't write this down. Oh, but the Spung I did write it down. The Spung transformation allows for evil versions of Goddard and Davenport, and as I've mentioned in many previous videos, it's always fun to see the evil version. And there's more of that in Space Cases to come. Let's see, the next one. The Prisoner of Luff. Yes, Prisoner of Luff. Yes. Okay, so the special guest star is Daisy Egan, who I believe was the youngest person to ever win a Tony Award for playing Mary in the Secret Garden musical. And she's one of two major musical theater references in the episode because her prisoner number, which she passes along to Catalina very nicely, is 24601, which is, of course, Jean Valjean's number in Les Miserables. So those are two, when I was rediscovering this, having gotten into Broadway musicals, those were two details that were particularly fun for me to rediscover. So I wrote down the question. So basically, Sophiana, Daisy Egan's character, breaks out of prison. They never explain how. She breaks out of prison, but she's clearly very clever. She has a very clever father. Breaks out of prison, breaks aboard, or makes her way to the Krista, steals aboard, and then Catalina is the one who answers there's some kind of signal, warning, alarm going off, and Catalina's the one who goes, and so she ends up being sent to prison in Sophiana's place. And I guess this is so that they don't detect that there's nobody there, but it's kind of like in Prisoner of Azkaban when they talk about how the Dementors guard the prisoners, but they're blind. They can't see who's who. They just know whether or not there's a person there. And these seem to be, I guess they're the Luff. That is the name of the alien race. they seem to be humanoid. They seem to have eyes and be able to see, but they also don't seem to care who's in the cell as long as there's someone in the cell. And Sophiana is scheduled to be mind wiped because she refuses to give information to the Luff. She has information, she refuses to give it, and so they're going to erase her memory so she has no information, which I don't understand the logic of that. But that's what that fate then is inherited by Catalina and puts her in danger. So let's see. When they so Thelma goes, she hijacks the ship, makes them take her to where her father hid some kind of computer virus, I guess, that's going to knock out the weapons and stop a war. And Thelma goes out because she doesn't need to breathe air. Being an android, she goes out and she fetches it, and then she also retrieves what is supposedly a bomb that Sophiana has affixed to the outside of the ship. And then when she comes in and hands the virus to Sophiana, Sophiana says, "You better get down on your hands and knees and beg that the information in the cell is intact." And this is the first time it has registered to me how weird that line is. The reason for the line? So that Thelma would take it literally, get down on her hands and knees, and trip Sophiana, who doesn't realize that that's going to happen because she's just met Thelma. But get down on your hands and knees and beg. I think they had to say get down on your hands and knees, but usually say get down on your hands and knees and pray. Maybe because it's a kids' science fiction show, they didn't want to say pray. They didn't want to use the language of religion, although Catalina is frequently known to say like holy grosset. Grosset or grosit is, I guess, it's not necessarily a god, but I think that she does use the word holy in conjunction with it. So there is religion. So saying pray, but again, maybe it's just Nickelodeon not wanting to use the word pray, but could have said hope instead, because begging that the information is in the cell and intact doesn't really make sense, because who are they begging if they're not praying? And it's weird, and I wonder about that line. But the reason for the line was so that Thelma could trip Sophiana. They don't send her back to jail in the end. So she's got and presumably I'd love to catch up with her. Well, the show was canceled after 2 seasons, so she's not coming back. But to see her in the future and find out if she had successfully stopped the war, that would be a pretty great episode for season 4 or 5 or whatever, if they had happened. Let's see. There was also a bit the guards of the prison just clownish. The guard at first says the collar can't be turned off when the collar is going to so Catalina escapes her cell and she's running around. They can't catch her because they're incompetent guards, as guards often are in children's shows. And so he just says, "We're going to blow you up. We've set the collar to self-destruct." And then when the Krista crew breaks into the prison, because again, prison guards clownish. He says the collar can't be turned off. They say it's the wrong person. You have to turn off the collar. The collar can't be turned off. It's going to explode. But then he finds out that they have the thing that he wants, the virus, and he says, "If you give it to me, I'll turn it off." So can it be turned off or not? I don't know. But again, it's for the sake of a fun show. And it is a fun show. It's kind of creepy. The prison is creepy. The other prisoner that Catalina meets, very creepy. Yeah, I was about to say, I remember watching this one at a friend's house, but that's the next episode, which I'll just go into. The Impossible Dram, another musical theater reference that I didn't get when I first saw it, if I even noticed the title at all. But then after learning about musicals and revisiting the whole, which I think I did in college, I revisited this show in college. And The Impossible Dram, it's The Impossible Dream because he's Don Quixote. I got that he was Don Quixote, even not really knowing. I guess I knew Don Quixote maybe from Wishbone at that point. but I don't even know that to be the case. The Impossible Dram is the Impossible Dream because Dram is Don Quixote. My first question, because the episode opens with Catalina dreaming about medieval times on Earth, and so why? And then when she wakes up, she says that Saturnians rarely dream. So why was she dreaming at all, and why was she dreaming of Earth? But that's again, it's because she was reading about the Middle Ages. Well, why are the space cadets learning about the Middle Ages? I guess Davenport, being British and having had theater tickets in the first episode, she believes in teaching the classics. But the Middle Ages, I guess, if the Middle Ages are like 1300s, 1400s, and before and after, then another 200 years from when the show is written doesn't make that much of a difference as far as it's too far back. But I hope that she teaches the histories of the other planets equally, gives equal time. I mean, she and Goddard seem to be human from Earth, and so. But I hope that that all the planets get equal time in the classroom, and maybe they would have if the show had gone on another couple of seasons. This is an episode full of great lines, especially coming from Dram, who, even though Catalina has rainbow hair, she looks human enough, and he says she reminds him of his daughter. When we see the flashback video of him and his daughter, Jewel Staite is playing his daughter, but she looks human enough. Harlan is human enough, and Harlan is human, and so he does, and he meets Goddard. But when he meets the more alien-looking kids who aren't even that alien-looking, it's just Rosie is a normal girl, but she's pink. Bova is a normal guy, but he's got a horn. That's enough to set him off, and not to say aliens, but to say he calls Bova a bug creature and Rosie a radish monster, and he tries to kill Bova, and Bova zaps him, and Catalina says, "Bova, you could have hurt him, or you could have really seriously hurt him." And he goes, "I should have just let him stab me. What was I thinking?" And that's a great line. Radish monster is just a great line, and the best line, the very best line, they're trying to figure out how he was able to dock his ship in the Krista, and and Thelma says, "Well, the Krista has has its own, a will of its own. Just let him in." And Davenport takes issue with this, and Thelma says, "Don't worry, the Krista is an excellent judge of character." Davenport says, "What makes you say that?" And Thelma goes, "It let you in," and that's just a great. All of her humor is of course very dry because she's an android. I love dry humor, but just "it let you in." And it's just a way of just shutting her down, shutting Davenport down. Dram naturally has a Don Quixote-ish backstory. And someone says at some point, what is with, says to Catalina, what is, because she meets him, she's the first to meet him, and she just takes to him, and she wants to indulge his eccentricities, and even seems like she wants a quest, and she's on a quest. They are on a quest to get back home from way out random in space. But someone says, I forget who it is, says to her, "What is with you and that crazy old guy?" And that's not really answered in the episode. I mean, we see that she's dreaming of, she happens to have been reading about Earth Middle Ages. She's dreaming about Middle Ages in the beginning of the episode, but she's also a scientifically minded person and a very logical person. So knowing all that she ultimately knows about him, why indeed does she continue to indulge the fantasy? Nobody knows at the time why everybody's feeling drowsy and having hallucinations, which is the secondary plot line of the show. It is revealed, the reason is revealed, that it's chemicals from his ship that leaked into the air system of the Krista. but nobody knows at the time, in real time, what's going on, and she chooses to believe Dram, that it's a magical, mystical monster. Um, but why is the question? And I don't know. We never find out much about her family, but it just the one of the obvious, and this is the first time that this has occurred to me and bothered me. That one of the potential answers is father issues, like um, maybe Saturnians are more like Spung, and they don't want their women to do things, like real things, like go out into space, become star dogs. So maybe her father was against her going into what I guess is kind of a pseudo military academy type thing, or scientific thing. So maybe and this Dram guy wanted her to help him slay a monster, go on an adventure with him. So that was and I wonder, it's one of those things. I wonder if we'd gotten more episodes, especially with her, because she is not left behind, but she's not in season 2, because of some TV show called Flash Forward, I guess, which I know very little about. In fact, I know nothing about it. But yeah, I wonder about that. Maybe there's an answer somewhere out there, but why was, or maybe it's just, maybe it's the she's a girl character and so she has princess fantasies, but that also doesn't really go with Catalina. Um, Great name, Catalina, by the way. I love the name. It's my favorite name on the show. Bova used to be. Just like he used to be my favorite character. I wonder if there's a parallel thing there. Anyway, those are all of my notes for these 4 episodes. And so the next one of these things that I'm talking to my computer doing will be about the last 2 episodes of Season 1 in the first 2 episodes of Season 2. And one of those episodes is my very favorite episode of TV of any show ever. And I look forward to talking about it, and maybe, since I'm taking notes for the first time watching it, maybe noticing something that I've never noticed before and getting excited about that. So, ta-ta for now.